Go ahead.
Hi, welcome to Miami Skating, Past and Present. I'm Lee Ann Shoker, and I am the current assistant coach with Miami Varsity Skating, and I'll be your moderator today for this panel discussion. I'm very excited to have with us two alumni, our current head coach, Carla DeGirolamo. She is in her 12th season of head coach, which is crazy how fast time flies. She was a 4-year athlete on the senior team. She was a part of our first national championship team in the senior division and a coach for the other 2 titles we won. She has many accolades and many experiences, but some that are of note. She won the Lee Ann Grimes Female Student Athlete Award as a student, which is a huge honor within the Miami University Athletic Department, and has been a part of those key coaching moments, whether as an assistant or head coach with Miami Skating. We also have Ashley Korn, who I'm so excited to have with us. I always say this, I've known her literally since birth. So she is an alumni of Miami University, both with an undergraduate degree and a graduate degree, and currently works at University of Michigan in athlete academic advising. She is a 4-time national champion on the collegiate division and a student at Miami, and has a long history with the program as she's the daughter of our former head coach, Vicki Korn. And last but not least is one of our current senior athletes and captain on the collegiate team, Emily Krile. And I want to get this right because she's doing something super cool. So she is a native of Ann Arbor, Michigan, and is, as I said, on the collegiate team, but she's finishing up her 4 years here at Miami with a combined degree in family science with a concentration in child and life, mastered in a master's in educational psychology. So like a huge magical program experience for an undergraduate student to have and 4 years complete, and a huge accomplishment. So we're excited to talk skating with you today. The 4 of us have worked together in a lot of different ways and have known each other for a good bit of time. So I hope you enjoy the conversation. We're going to start off with just some fun questions to get us going. So I'm going to pitch this to each of you. What is your favorite Miami skating program you've watched or skated?
I'll go. I think it's hard to pick just one that I've watched, but I will go back to one that I skated. And I think looking back, my favorite Miami program that I skated was the 2001 season. Our now called Free Skate was Carmen, and that was just, I loved everything about it. I loved the music, I loved the dresses, I loved the program. It was so fun to skate. So I would have to say that was probably my favorite out of the 4 years I was around.
That's awesome. Ash, what do you think?
Yeah, I can go next. I mean, again, I've been around for literally almost every single program that's existed. So that's a hard one for me to answer. So I'm gonna go with one as a skater and one as a spectator. My favorite one to skate was my freshman year, the short program for the junior team, which was our Love Actually program. I don't know why. And normally I like to skate to music with words and things like that, but for some reason I just really loved that program. So I enjoyed that one. I liked that I got to wear that dress with the swirls and the hand painting, because I think that was the allure, is that I got to wear that dress. My favorite one to watch, which I don't think many of the skaters who were on that team will agree with this, but I loved the Love Shack program, which I know has moments that are great. And for the skaters on that team, maybe they didn't love it as much, but I really liked that program. It was really entertaining. There was a lot of cool and innovative things happening in that program. So I really liked that one.
Emily, what do you think?
My favorite program to skate was my sophomore year. We skated to Glam. I just loved the music. I loved the dresses. I loved everything about that. And my favorite program to watch was the Gypsy program. That was sort of my, this is Miami skating. And that's when I knew, oh, this is maybe somewhere I wanted to go.
With or without the wigs, though, because that's the key part.
Oh, I was at Nationals when I saw it.
Okay, so if it was at Porter, you would have got the full wigs.
Yes, those are great. As Ashley said, getting a long view of Miami skating and knowing that we had the original Goggin built in 1976, and before we became a varsity program in 1995-96, there was the precision team, and I got to be a part of the tail end of that. So again, I've watched a lot of hockey game intermissions through my lifetime. But there are so many fun things and favorite things to have watched. And for skating, for me, I loved when we did our blues program, and it was Sweet Home Chicago. And we actually skated that for 2 seasons, I believe. But it was a really, really fun program when we were able to go to the first ISU World Challenge Cup with it. So that was pretty cool. In terms of watching, there's just so many things that I love from so many different programs. Probably one of my favorite collegiate programs was the Carnival program we did. It was just so bright and fun. And there's elements like the no hold and the be Italian. There's lots of things in that realm. And then pieces from all of Sarah Kawahara's free skates I really, really have loved. But I really liked Urban Jungle, which was not necessarily always the fan favorite. Yes. But there are so many moments in that. And again, a lot of innovative things happening there as well. So that kind of just is a way to connect with us. And for those of you that haven't gotten a chance to watch synchronized skating, I'm sure some of you are logging onto this to kind of learn as you go. If you go on YouTube, you can literally Google Miami Skating and put in a year or a program name like we've mentioned, and they'll pull up a lot of those videos. And they're available from fans literally filming in the stands and posting them. So there's quite a repertoire of archive Miami skating materials online. So it's a pretty cool thing to see. I want to mention before I forget, today's panel is brought to you by Ohio's 529 plan, providing families a tax advantage way to save for higher education. And that's an exciting partnership that we're able to have. So we're able to bring content like this to our alumni. So moving on and back a little bit to our origins of being a varsity sport, we're celebrating our 25th anniversary this year as a varsity program here at Miami University. And just want to hear any reflections that Carla has on that.
I think it's such a special accomplishment. I mean, 25 years goes by super fast. And, there's obviously a lot of history even before that, paving the way for that monumentous season in 95-96, where we were able to make the jump to being a varsity program. And I know Lee Ann was a part of that team and kind of a part of that transitional experience, which I think is really unique perspective also. But, for me, I think I'm so proud to see where the team is today and have also been a part of the early years and seeing that we've still been able to maintain our tradition of excellence. We've still been able to provide this experience to our athletes to help them develop as human beings, as young women, to empower them, in their athletics, but also in their daily life. And, leaving us, not many people become professional ice skaters. So they go out into the working world, but just to see the things that people have accomplished. And we have such an exceptional group of women that have, from the very first day in, 1977, I think it was, that, we first had started the Club Precision program here at Miami to, this 2020-21 pandemic team. I think it's really rewarding for me to see, what we've been able to accomplish on the ice, and also what we've been able to accomplish and what they've been able to accomplish off of the ice when they're with us, and then also when they leave us.
Mm-hmm. So Emily, speaking of pandemic season, I know this is not the senior year anyone envisioned happening for anyone anywhere, whether it's high school or another college, university, or here at Miami. I think that's probably one of the most common questions that I get, even just connecting with friends and family, is what's going on with skating? Would you like to share a little bit of your experience from this special 25th anniversary pandemic edition?
Yeah, so we have been able to still practice, which for me, I had always envisioned this spectacular senior year with all of these ending things that you would expect. But I think with everything that's going on in the world, I'm super grateful to still have something. So we still go to practice. Right now we're skating 3 days a week. And while we aren't competing this season, we still have the connections with our teammates. We're still working to be better. I love being out there with my teammates who are going to continue in the next couple of years and being able to skate out there with them. There are definitely precautions in place. We come into the rink in 2 groups. So those locker room moments with all 20 of us aren't happening this season. So we split up into 2 groups and come in. But being all on the ice, that's the only time we can be together, because in Oxford, you can't have more than 10 people. But on the ice, we're allowed to all be together, and we wear masks. And it's that little bit of normalcy that a lot of us don't have right now, which I'm really grateful for.
Awesome. Ashley, you got to be a part of this 25-year history in a unique moment. So once upon a time, before we were varsity, we started competing in U.S. figure skating in the junior division. Miami won its first national title way back when, in 1993, in the junior division, while we were still a club sport and it was still precision skating. After winning that championship, we began competing in the senior division. And that junior team was shelved until we entered 2006 and 2007 and moved into our new home at the Goggin Ice Center here at its new location. And Ashley had a unique experience by being a first-year student and skating on 2 teams that year.
Yeah. So I think what was cool for me is, for a long time, and this is just going to give some background. For a long time, I grew up in Oxford. I grew up around the skating program, and I skated, and it was fun. And I didn't necessarily think that I was going to keep skating, so I was adamant I wasn't going to Miami. And then it came time to make a decision, and of course, I was going to Miami. So being able to then skate for the program, I feel like I got to start at the exact right time, because I got to start something new. I had watched something happen for years, and then I didn't get to just step right into what I already knew. It was brand new for me, for everyone. So I thought that was a really cool and unique experience, that I got to start something new as the team started something new. So it wasn't like I can go in there and be like, I already know how this works, right? I didn't know how it worked. I think that was a really cool and unique experience to get to start fresh with a whole group of skaters, group of athletes that were brand new to Miami and brand new to a facility and brand new to a division. At least, somewhat brand new to a division. A lot of my teammates had skated in junior before, but it was a new era of Miami skating. And I think that was a really cool thing for me to be able to step into and skate both on junior and collegiate, and just have that unique and different experience that none of us really knew what to expect, but had an opportunity to create something. And, the junior division is hard, as much as everyone's like, oh, they'll dominate. It's junior. The junior division is really hard. And that was something we didn't really understand, right? Where it's like, this is going to be more difficult than we realized. So I think it was a really good experience for us to kind of get indoctrinated and to sort of learn how you have to work and what you have to work for and what being a student athlete really means. I was really, really fortunate to step in when I did and come to Miami and get to start that completely new experience all at the same time that my teammates were, and got to see Miami skating in a completely different way than what I had expected. Yeah.
Great. And for those of you, so when we're talking about her skating on 2 teams, what that really meant was she had 2-a-day practices every day. So we would have collegiate on ice practice and we would have junior on ice practice. So it wasn't uncommon for the group of what we called cross skaters to be on the ice from 6:30 to almost 9 o'clock every morning with just an ice cut to kind of regroup, and then still maintain all the other regular training with strength and conditioning and off-ice studio work. So it was pretty neat. Carla, that was your first head coaching experience with the junior team that year. Do you want to talk a little bit about the transition from moving from an assistant coach to a head coach role?
Yeah, it was obviously really exciting for all of us, as Ashley said, to kind of move into some uncharted waters and adding a new division into our program at that time. And, for us, there are different age and skating level requirements for the different divisions within figure skating. And this junior division had a cap age of 19, which basically meant it was kind of our freshman team, which was a really fun experience to be able to work with everybody kind of in that same point in life where everybody is trying to figure things out and, who am I going to be and what do I want to do in college and how do I find my way? So it was really fun for me to be able to help them navigate that, and obviously moving from an assistant coaching position into a head coaching position, I think we all did a lot of work as a coaching team. So I think, all of us were always kind of involved in everything, which was really neat, in a great way, obviously, for me to keep learning. But, being able to put the programs together and kind of watch that evolve and, try things that have been in my head for years, and to see that come to fruition in real life is always, even still to this day, really exciting. But that first time was very, very cool.
And I misspoke. Your first head coaching position, you were the head coach of the collegiate team your first year on the staff too. So one of the things that's unique about Miami skating is Vicky Korn, our former head coach, is really integral in establishing what is known as collegiate skating within U.S. figure skating. And in this time frame, we established the varsity program in 95, 96. And then in 96, 97, the collegiate division was born. And our team is a little different than that initial iteration. Initially, these athletes not only competed collegiate synchronized skating, they also did intercollegiate freestyle competitions as well. So the team would pack up on a bus and maybe head up to Northern Michigan. And in a weekend, they'd do a program as a synchronized skating team and then do 5 individual events, or 2 or 3 individual each skater, and compete for points like you would at a meet. So that was really cutting edge and developing of a conference. And Miami was definitely in on the ground floor of that. And Vicky definitely had the lead on that. As the iteration has changed, we primarily focus on the collegiate division of synchronized skating. The figure skating portion and what they now call the open collegiate division is really part of a student organization here on campus and as a student club, which is really, really fun. And it's fun to see and cheer them on, but is not something that has continued on within our varsity program. So with that being said, our collegiate team has a rich and storied history. So Emily, I was going to kind of pitch to you because you've gotten to be a part of this. What are some things that you value about being part of the collegiate division and have learned by being a part of Miami skating?
I think my favorite part about being in the collegiate division is the camaraderie and the ability to represent your school. So they play your school's fight song when you get on the ice at nationals. That's such a special moment because in skating, it's so separate. You never get to represent your school just like any other sport. So I think that's really cool. And the love for skating in the collegiate division is unlike anything else. Those girls that are on the ice and those athletes just love skating. And that's something I never knew before competing in the division, but everybody is so excited to be at competitions. Everybody is so supportive of one another. And that's something that I never expected, but it is so incredible about the collegiate division.
That's cool. Ashley, you had the opportunity to represent Team USA at the World Winter University Games. That's always a mouthful for me to get out. In Harbin, China. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, so we were fortunate in that year to skate as a senior team. So our collegiate program was extended by 30 seconds, and we were required to add lifts, and we had to add a short program. So it was a really unique season, and I went into that year. I remember my mom telling me ahead of time. She's like, "So here's the deal." This is going to happen and we're going to have the collegiate team do it. Because it's my junior year at this point. She's like, do you think the team is going to be able, willing, and interested? And I'm like, yeah, we get to go to China. Sold. Like we're bought in completely. So, to have that opportunity, I was a captain that year, to have that opportunity to do that, to not only have a Team USA experience, but do something a collegiate team has never done before, was a really exciting opportunity. It challenged us in different ways. We got to, 1, have 3 programs, but 2, just be able to experience Team USA in a different and unique way, because you're not just there to represent the United States, you're also there to represent an institution. So it was a twofold experience where you're around other collegiate athletes at a very high level. So it was a really cool thing to do where, they put you in the dorms, and obviously dorms in China were a little different than probably the dorms they have at Miami now. I hear that they're nice and fancy compared to even when I was there. But yeah, so it was a little, the accommodations were different, but you're in the hallways with other Team USA athletes from different institutions, and got to experience lots of different things. So if you're looking at it from a cultural competency lens, we learned a lot, and the experience went so far beyond the skating. Frankly, I don't even remember the skating aspect of that trip. Like, I know that we got on the ice and we did some stuff, and it was cool, and it was in an arena, and for us, it was all about the experience and what we were able to learn and do while we were there. We got to see some of the most impressive ice sculptures. I mean, they were bigger than Goggin Arena. It was a very cool experience. And then to be able to go to competitions and both compete in the collegiate division and the senior division was unique and different. People were like, what is happening? What are they doing? Why are they lifting? So it was definitely unique and cool. And it challenged us in a unique way that no other collegiate team has been able to do since then. So we feel very fortunate to have had that opportunity and to go to China and do something unique and different.
That's great. And that was the second time that Miami University had been able to attend the Winter World University Games. Carla was an assistant coach during the first event, which was in Torino, Italy, just following the Torino Olympics. And that was a special season, 2006 and 2007 for the senior team. Do you want to talk a little bit about that journey that led us to the podium at the World Championships?
Yeah, it was, again, one of those opportunities. I think one of the things that's really remarkable about this program is, from its inception, it has been a trailblazer in the sport, whether it's the collegiate division, whether it's the discipline of synchronized skating within US figure skating. Miami has led the way in a lot of areas, a lot of opportunities, a lot of experiences, which is something that we're all really proud of, and really proud to have been a part of some of those moments. This obviously being one of them. And I think it was interesting because the year prior was 2006, which was an Olympic year, and the Olympics were in Torino, and we happened to be competing that year in Milan, Italy, in one of our international events, and we had taken a day trip to Torino to see the Olympic torch run through, which was a crazy experience in itself. And I don't think I've ever been a part of a crowd that big in my life, especially in COVID times. Now it just seems so foreign, but to have been there and seen that and kind of been in that Olympic atmosphere, and then to be able to go back to that very same place, that very same venue the next year and be competing in the university games was a really interesting parallel. And a lot of the team members that were on the team in 2006 were also on the team in 2007. So they were able to kind of make that transition as well, from spectating to participating in something. And this was the first time that synchronized skating was included in the Winter World University Games. Obviously, we were the first representative for the United States at the Winter World University Games, which was really thrilling. And, it was an event, kind of as Ashley spoke to the one in China, where being immersed in a more Olympic-like atmosphere was something really unique to experience. There was the athletes' village. You were with the other athletes in different sports, the curling, the hockey, the snow skiing, all of those sort of things. And for them to be able to experience those moments was really special. And then for us, kind of taking that was kind of our jumping point into what we knew was going to be a really special season. And it had kind of been building from the prior, I would say 2 to 3 seasons, where you could just feel the momentum building from year to year. Our placements were great, which was good. But also just you could feel the confidence building in the athletes. You could feel the talk building about the program, about the team. And that 2007 season was kind of the culmination of a lot of that momentum. And it started with the university games and being able to compete against some of our competitors, that we usually don't see all of them together until the World Championships. And we were able to kind of go head to head right there, earlier in the season than we normally do. And from that point, we hung in the game. I think we were maybe 4th place at that event. But, having that experience, we were able to make some adjustments to refocus in some areas and really stretch out our game plan to achieve our goals, which were obviously, to win a national championship and to move up internationally and get onto the world podium. We got onto the world podium. We did not get the national championship. Still a sore spot for us, but that's okay. So I think, from that point, we kind of continued through the season, and we really kept focus on ourselves and, what we were doing and what we want to accomplish, and doing it and doing what we believed was necessary and what we really believed in. We believed in the program. We believed in the athletes. We believed in the process that we had established from the beginning of that season through the end. So moving from that university games into the U.S. championships, we're feeling good. They skated 2 really great programs. We wound up a scooch out of first. We were second by a hair. But, I think something like that and a disappointment after having been national champions the year before can take you one of 2 directions. It can either take you into kind of a pity spiral and feeling bad and giving up, or it can really motivate you and push your drive to come back stronger and to prove that you should have been at the top of that podium. And thankfully, we took it the second way. So, from that kind of disappointment in the locker room, I still remember walking in. I still remember what it was like. And then I remember coming back home and sitting in our locker room and having a discussion on, okay, this is what happened. What are we going to do about it? Where do we want to be when this season is finished? What do we want our story to say? And so we refocused and we trained harder and smarter than we have done before. And there was a fire in those athletes that, we had seen, but not to that level. And going into that world event, we knew that we were going to medal there. I don't think anybody else knew that we were going to medal there, but we knew, and that's all that mattered. And that's how they took the ice every single day, expecting to be on that podium. And they executed, and they did it, and, making history not only for Miami, but for the United States of America. It was the first world medal for any U.S. team in the history of synchronized skating, and Miami University was there. It was the silver medal, which is still to this date the highest overall placement at the Senior World Championships for a U.S. team. So we still hold that record as well. And just to kind of see all of the work, all of the preparation, all of the dreams of these athletes come together in that moment. And it wasn't just our athletes on the ice, but every U.S. skater that was there. The event was in Canada. So there was a large U.S. contingency there in the stands, from the younger ones to the older ones who had been there before. We had a lot of alumni there. And it was kind of that moment for all of Miami skating and for all of U.S. synchronized skating, which is really special.
That's pretty cool. I mean, Ash was there in the stands, I think, that day also. And pretty special. Do you want to talk a little bit about getting to watch that moment? And I can't imagine. I know how I felt, and I am. I was not your mother's child, but I know that you rode along on that journey to that moment as well as much as any athlete did, and it was a long road for you. Do you want to talk a little bit about that success for your mom?
Yeah, absolutely. I was 19 years old, and in Canada, and it was a cool thing to be on that trip as an athlete and not as Vicky's daughter for a moment. And then they got on the ice, they skated, and I go back to my 15-year-old self watching the team, but also I spent a lot of time watching my mom on the sideline, and so I would watch Carla and I'd watch Heather, you know what I mean, and I could gauge from them how the team was doing. So there's images of my mom where the music's going and she's literally swaying with them. And I'm like, it's done. It's happening. Right. Like we knew in that moment, or at least I knew in that moment that they were going to do something special. And, to have competed at nationals and, I won my first national championship and that was great. And it was really cool because I had never actually been to nationals my first year, but it was to me, overshadowed a little bit because they should have won. So going into Worlds and being able to still watch it, and then getting the recognition and the opportunity and the points that they deserved, was a really, really cool experience, just to be able to sit back and watch, and just the relief over everyone, because they had finally gotten the recognition that they deserved, and to have done it for U.S. figure skating, not just, and that was the bigger thing for me, was this was something beyond Miami. This was a U.S. figure skating record, right? So this was a really cool experience, and I was so proud to have been able to watch it evolve and grow, and for her to have gotten that opportunity. It was I knew when they were done, and then it was like, oh no, like what's the score going to be? Because I knew that they had done everything they could. And there were little blips, that there were errors for sure that happened in that run through, and we were all like, oh no. But being able to watch her at the end and just be like, okay, like, and I know I have a tendency to do that, and I watch Carla still, I know, like, we've learned to know when the coaches are content with what was put out. And she was so content, and that was a really cool thing.
Yeah. I got chills listening to both you talk. It was a really magical moment. So we've had a couple questions come up through the live chat, and I just want to pause for a moment, and we're going to talk about the difference between the teams. So U.S. figure skating has different divisions, from the little teeny tiny kids all the way through the senior division, which we have a team in. So currently Miami Skating fields a collegiate team, which is comprised of full-time athletes, and they have to compete against other college and university students only. So 95% of the competition is against other colleges and universities, whether it's University of Michigan, Western Michigan, any specific school. Then they're also in areas where they may not have enough student athletes from one school to form a team. They form a team between schools. So like in the Boston area, where there's 1 million colleges, there's a team called Excel, and it's all still full-time college students. They're just not representing one specific school. So that's our collegiate division. And we have athletes who are freshmen through senior on that team, and we field 20 athletes on that team. 16 compete at one time. The other team that we currently field is the senior team in the senior division. For Miami, it is still comprised of all full-time college students. And a varsity sport, we field 20 athletes, 16 compete at one time, but we compete in what's called the senior division, which is the championship division. So we compete against other clubs and a lot of other college students, but they may not be full-time. Some of them may actually be younger. Some of them may be older. And it's basically clubs we compete against. And we don't only do that in the US, but we also do that internationally, representing Team USA. So with our hope one day, this discipline will move to the Olympics, it will be the senior division that is competing in the Olympics. And that is the division that currently goes to the World Championship. The junior division is restricted by age, and that's one of the reasons why we no longer have that division. It took a lot of energy and effort to try to field the right number of athletes under the age of 18. And it just became really difficult recruiting, and also to have resources to make sure all three teams were adequately being provided what they need to be successful. And so that's why we're currently with the two teams. I hope that answers the question. We carry 40 athletes between both teams in our program, and that assists also with balancing gender equity numbers within the athletic department. So that's kind of just a zoom out to answer that question, because I think it'll make it easier as we continue with our accolades and our stories here. I'm going to go to Emily. So we're hearing all these things. And I know Emily didn't just have her first interaction with Miami Skating when she came to campus. I know you were in contact with a lot of alumni prior to coming here. So can you talk about coaches or alumni that you interacted with and your experience of the Miami Cradle of Coaches?
Yeah, so I grew up skating in Ann Arbor, Michigan. So I grew up skating on Hawkettes. I skated there for 10 years, coached by Aaron Donovan, who is an alumni of Miami. So growing up, Miami was this place that people went, this incredible culmination of after you graduate high school, this is this really cool place you can go and continue skating. And we had athletes come back and come to our camps in the summer and work with us, and they would perform their tryout programs at our exhibitions in the summer. So Miami was definitely this thing to aspire to. And when I was in high school, Marissa Hutchinson came back to work with the team, and I formed a really great friendship, and I really feel like I learned a lot from her, and she really had a big impact on me wanting to come to Miami. I also had teammates that while I was here, they had reached out my senior year, and a couple of my teammates and I had come and visited campus and sort of saw what it was like to be a student at Miami and be on the team. And so Miami has this great network of alumni who really reach out to you and want to answer your questions and want to provide information about this incredible program.
Mm-hmm. It's great. So that's a fun fact. So where Emily grew up skating at the Hawkettes, actually currently helps coach there. Aaron Donovan was a teammate of Carla DeGirolamo. Marissa Hutchinson was a classmate of Ashley Korn here. And that Ann Arbor, Michigan bubble is not unusual. We have that happening also in the Chicago area. There's some in the Boston area. You walk in a rink, you probably can meet a Miami skating alumni somewhere or someone who knows someone. It's a pretty fun thing. We have one member of the Miami University Athletic Hall of Fame is Karen Shear. She skated with Carla and is a national and world judge for the U.S., which is pretty cool. She's mentored a lot of young officials who have come out of Miami. So any synchronized skating event ends up feeling like an alumni event, which is pretty fun. So whether it's running into people that I skated with or people that I coached, or maybe a gap where I wasn't here coaching, but I knew them from camp or from other people, it's a pretty special thing. And we really refer to ourselves as the Miami skating family with it. So it's a pretty neat thing. One of the questions that was submitted earlier, I'm going to let anyone in the group, if not all of you, because Emily, you've started coaching also. So what things have you learned from your collegiate coaches and how they impacted how you coach?
Emily, you want to go first on that one, or you want me to do it?
You can go first.
Okay. So, I mean, I think it's a given. Obviously, my mother was the coach for however many years. So, I think I can easily give you a laundry list of things that I have taken from her. But I think, I think I can go beyond. I mean, more so, I learned lots of things of not to do, because she would come home with what everybody else had done and be like, listen, you're never going to do X, Y, and Z, right? So I learned a lot of, this is what you don't do, types of things. So I was an angel when I went to college. So there were a lot of those lessons learned. But when I take a step back as a coach, and look at it from that perspective, I think a lot of it is looking to push the envelope. I mean, my mom constantly was trying to think outside the box. What can we do differently that's going to set us apart? And that was, where the partnership with Sarah Carhauer began. And it was, how can we challenge the system, but also excel? So I think I've taken a lot of that with me. I always pay attention to music. I mean, I think I knew what everybody was skating to months before everybody else did, because I would be hearing the music over and over and over. And I've definitely adopted that. So, music is super, super important in the package that you put together. And I learned a lot of that from her. But then as a skater, watching people like Heather Page, who now is the head coach of this Starlights, she also had that mindset where it was like, what can I do that is outside the box? What themes, what choreography can I do that kind of extends beyond the capacity of my athletes and pushes them? And then having that conversation of comfortability with the athletes of, does this feel good for you? And is it going well? Because if your athletes can't commit to it, it's never going to work. And you might have this vision and you might think it's going to be great, but if the athletes are like, I'm just not, they can't get there, then we need to do something differently. And I learned a lot of that from Heather, because she would always ask us questions. And at the time, I didn't really realize what she was asking, and be like, yeah, it feels fine. Like, I don't understand. Right. But now looking back and doing types of programs that sort of try and challenge a little bit, and challenge my athletes, asking those questions and doing those types of things, I think have become really important. And then to pull pulled deep from the arsenal too. Sandy Lamb, who was one of our coaches for a long time, she would come in, kind of pop up here and there, much like Kelly does now with skating skills and things like that. But she would also, I would have to do dance outside of this. My mom was very adamant about doing ice dance. And I was terrible at it, like terrible. And Sandy was like, you, right? And we knew I was bad at it. But even though I was bad at it, learning the cadence of music and learning edges and turn quality and things like that were important things that she said, if you can't do this, you won't do anything else any better. So I think I've been able to, obviously I've been very fortunate that I've learned from the best, and have been able to take a lot of that with me, and it's been able to help my coaching career pretty significantly. So that was a long-winded answer, but
I'm shocked it wasn't. I'm shocked it wasn't me teaching your pre-preliminary figure test as a college student, as you as a toddler. So Yeah.
Aaron Donovan, who I coach with now, both at University of Michigan and at Hawkettes, was one of my coaches for one of my field moves, and I ran right into the boards in the middle of a field moves test, and she was like, "I don't know what to tell you." Like, there's a lot of little things that have happened with almost everyone that has gone through Miami that I've been able to learn from. So it's been pretty entertaining for me to just collect that information and be able to take it with me.
Yeah. You're our most green but yet experienced coach here. So tell us what you've taken away.
Yeah, so I've been coached by Miami athletes my whole life. I started coaching my freshman year of high school. I coached our introductory team at Hawkettes, and then I had a beginner team. But one of the biggest, most profound things I feel like as an athlete I learned was self-awareness. Marissa, her first year, we were on the ice, I was on a lesson, and I did something, and she goes, "So how was that? Like, what'd you do wrong?" And I looked at her like, "Well, isn't that your job to tell me?" But I think that was one of the greatest gifts she ever gave me, was that self-awareness of knowing what my body is doing and knowing how to fix it. And coming to Miami, that's a big thing we get pretty general corrections, but it's your job to figure out if that's something that applies to you and how you should fix it. And I didn't know where that came from, but obviously it came from her time here. And so even with my athletes, I have 7 students from the Oxford community. And even with my students, I have a little 5-year-old, and I say, "Okay, like, what happened that time?" And she'll, "Oh, my tummy wasn't strong." And so I've really instilled that in my athletes, because I think that is a really great gift in somebody's athletic development.
And it carries over everywhere else in life too, which is pretty cool. Yeah. All right, Carla, what are your thoughts?
Oh, golly. Well, when I thought of this question, I have to say a big chunk of my answer was very similar to Ashley's. Obviously coming here and being part of Miami, Vicky pushed the limits and everything and helped us see that we could push further than we thought we could and try things that we didn't think that we could do. And that was a huge thing that I wanted to keep instilling in the athletes here. And I think the other part that I learned from her, which sometimes is easier to do than others, is to always trust your gut. And, as a coach, whatever sport you're in, you're always going to have that voice that's telling you what to do. But there are always so many outside forces that kind of pull against what that inner feeling is, and getting to that point to where you can kind of push those things aside and really hone into that voice. Like, what's best for your team, what's best for your program. Sometimes it's going to be easy, sometimes it's going to be hard, but stick with your plan, stick with your gut, and take the risk. I would say is probably the biggest thing that I learned from her.
Right. And I would agree. One of my biggest gifts from Vicky is an incredible, outrageous love for music. So that is probably my biggest takeaway from her. And then also finding talent in everybody. She was so good at letting people shine where they were able to shine and give them a little boost where they maybe weren't so great. And another person who really impacted me is Bonnie Bloom-Grossell. And I had the privilege of skating with her as a teammate and also being coached by her. And she had an incredible optimism with a good solid dose of like, realistic pessimism, you know? And where she always found where that those two places met was in details. So she has an incredible eye for seeing things. Even today, she'll come back and watch practice and be like, what's happening here? And I'm like, you've been here for 5 minutes. You're visiting your daughter on campus. Can't you just enjoy this? But it's just an eye. And I think that's something that she developed in all of us in one way or another, whether it was taking lessons from her or working with her or not. And then going back to Sandy Lamb and Kelly Adair, it's really fun. I got to skate with both of them growing up. And it's one of my greatest joys getting to coach with Kelly because she is phenomenal. If anyone has had the opportunity to attend any seminars where she coaches or does coaches education, she's phenomenal and a huge technician. And it'll be exciting. We'll be doing a class on the ice and I'll be like, this is what's wrong. And then she says it. I'm like, oh my God, I learned something from her. My 14-year-old self still knows. So we all fangirl in our own way about these trailblazers and women who really set the stage for us to have success. So we're at 12:45 and I have a couple fun questions that mirror some of the pre-submitted questions I want to hit. Music, as I said. So someone asked, what is your song that reminds you forever of Miami skating? But I asked our panelists here to maybe pull together their top 5. So I think it'll cover a nice big span. So why don't we start with you, Ash?
Yeah. So, I mean, I obviously have, my arsenal goes deep because I've been around the program for so long. So some of them, my class and my teammates are going to resonate with, and some it's going to be more Carla, Lee Ann, and the older generation. But so Together Again by Janet Jackson, which has a lot of meaning for the program just in general for the 1999 team. But also we did a lot of flying chalk tests to that. And then I know that extends off to the Hawkettes too, who did a rendition of that program that Aaron and my mom kind of collaborated on, which is a cool thing. So that song, Bag Lady by Erykah Badu, which is, I think Carla and Leanne know that one, but we did knees to it and we called it knees. It's like the jog exercise, but I really like that song and I don't know how often it gets used anymore. I know I've found new versions to use, but sometimes I'll bust it out in my little juvie practice and they're like, what is this? They have no idea what's going on. And then Remember the Name. I know that's something that the team still uses now, but that song came out my freshman year of college. And that was the t-shirt slogan on our shirts that year. And it kind of created it was a catalyst for the program. And it's something that's still there today. So that's a cool thing to see still exists and still evolve from there. And then this shout out to Adrienne Berkowitz. I asked her this question and her immediate response, like not even 2 seconds later, was Buttons by Pussycat Dolls. So that was a skills song that we use pretty frequently. And then the random one for me, because I couldn't really come up with another one because I think there's so many, but Life is a Highway, because we did a lot of brackets to that, and I still use that. I think Emily's laughing because I think the Hawkettes used that one too, because I used it too with them, and then Make the Michigan Girls do it too. So I think those are my top 5 at the moment. I'm sure it can change in an instant. So
Emily, so playing off of that, what do you think?
Yeah, there were a lot. I asked in the locker room the other day if anybody had some input. But one of the big ones was Now or Never from high school, the third High School Musical movie. That is one that plays at competitions all the time. The Pitch Perfect, Bella's finale, that is always played on the bus, and you'll see the little strutting down the aisle while the bus is driving us up to the competition. One from practice that we do with Kelly all the time is Seven Devils by Florence and the Machine. And there's just this drill that we do that you have to play Seven Devils. It only works with that one. And then another one is Level Up by Ciara. That one was our warm-up song my sophomore year. And that is just sort of this like go-to pump-up song now. And then the last one is Don't Stop Believing. That is always the last song that the collegiate team right now plays before getting off the bus at competitions, which is really special.
That's great. Carla.
Oh gosh. Okay. So the first couple are from training drills that we did back in the day when I was on the team skating. The first one is Bittersweet Symphony, Thunderstruck, and Mambo No. 5. Those are fantastic. Always just like I can see it in my head. I can see the cues. I can see everything. And then I think a little bit more recent would be the Bond song Explosive. So if you ever see our current team in the warm-up area at a competition, it's kind of a back warm-up exercise that they had done with Lana K. Rosenberg, which like we did it one year and it has stuck. I don't even know how many years it's been, but every time I hear that song, takes me back to that. And then I think obviously Remember the Name is a big one, but another fun one would be, I think it's called Turbulence that they play. And it's just like a really driving, building song. It's got great energy. It was played often on a bus. Our bus driver got real into it, and we would have some turbulence on the bus at the right time. And it was, people around us probably thought we were crazy, but it was a lot of fun. So
yes, I love hearing all those, and I there's so many things that stick in my head, and anything Gypsy Kings is definitely on the list, because we did a lot of edge work exercises with those. And then from coaching here, I giggle because I still know I can stress some people out if I put on the plain white tees, Hey There Delilah, because yes, Twizzles, right?
People hate that song just enough every time.
And then I know if I went to annoy Carla, I can put on Say My, like there's just songs that you can keep pulling to keep people going back and forth. So it's a really fun thing. So we've talked a lot about our experiences while being at Miami. I guess and kind of wraps up a couple other questions here. What are some of the best lessons you've learned from Miami skating, and how have you carried them forward in other areas of your life? So Emily, I know you're transitioning, but you're interning professionally. You have another job in town where you're a manager. Like you have some responsibility already before you take your next step after school. So why don't you talk a little bit about what your next step you hope it to be and what some lessons you'll use?
Yeah, so I'll graduate in May with my bachelor's and my master's. So I was lucky enough to squeeze those all into 4 years. I want to be a child life specialist. So I have an internship this summer in Cape Town, South Africa, working at a children's hospital there. So I'm really excited, and hopefully with everything that's going on in the world, I'll still be able to go. That was canceled last summer, so we'll see. And then I want to work abroad. So I studied abroad between my freshman and sophomore year in the Gambia, a country in Africa, and I just have a passion for working abroad. So I hope to work in a pediatric hospital eventually back in the States, but I definitely want to do that. But I think one of the biggest lessons I've learned from Miami skating and from my coaches and my teammates is this passion in everything you do. I think it's really important. We are told every day to come and show up and do your job, but also you're choosing to be here and you have a passion for this sport and you have a passion for working with your teammates. And I think that that's something I'll always carry, that with everything you do, you should do it because you love it and do it with passion and choose every day to do something that you love.
That's great. That's great. Carla?
Oh my gosh. There's just so much. Whether it was from my skating days, my coaching days, I think there are so many valuable lessons that come from being a part of the program. I think being resilient, being patient, being able to work with others, and the true meaning of teamwork. I think synchronized skating is probably one of the truest team sports that there is, because you literally are connected to the people on your team. If one person goes down, you all go down together. So you can see the highest highs, you can see the lowest lows. And I think really that's something that you can take into all of life. And I think the other thing for me is, I kind of mentioned it before, to take the risk, to reach for the big goal that you're not sure you can get to, because you're never going to get there if you don't try. And I think, sometimes you'll be successful, sometimes you might fall short, but you have to try. And I think that's something that, from the beginning has been instilled in our athletes and myself included. And so that's something that I take with me for sure.
Mm-hmm. Ash?
Yeah, I mean, so this is a hard question for me, because I have lots of life with me. Like literally Miami skating was, my life for 25 years while I lived in Oxford. So there's a whole lot, like Carla mentioned, to take from whether I was an athlete, just, a rugrat running around the rink, learned a lot of things, what to do, not to do. There's so many things. But I think, being at Miami, it really parlayed into my current career, which is, continuing to work in collegiate athletics. And I get to work with student athletes every day of my life. And I think the biggest thing, the advice that I give them, whether they're my skating athletes or my athletes at Michigan, I work with primarily male teams. So on any of those teams, I think the biggest thing for me is understanding that understanding the importance of creating relationships with the people that support your program. And whether that's your athletic program, your academic program, whatever else program, your fraternity, sorority, whatever that is, build those relationships, create those relationships, because those are going to be ultimately what keep you engaged. Those are going to be what continues to make you have a vested interest in coming back to campus, in having relationships with your teammates. It is the moment that keeps you attached to the past, present, and future of those programs. So I think building relationships and just knowing that those might take time. They might start your freshman year and be like awkward, and it's like, hey Andy, can you shovel my skates, right? And it's like and then it parlays as you get to your senior year of, like what did you do in class today? What did you learn, right? So those things are going to evolve, and be okay with that evolution. And just invest that time, that time in your relationships. It takes time, but it's important. And it's going to, you never know where those relationships can take you. They could parlay into a career, a job, an opportunity. It could just be a good relationship that you have somebody to talk to whenever you need them. Right. So lots of different things can come out of our experiences at Miami. But for me, I think the biggest thing has been the relationships and how I've been able to use those and grow from those.
I would echo that also, what the three of you said, but probably one of my biggest lessons is there's always more to the story. There's always more to everybody's story. And it's really easy to get caught up in feeling like you're the only one going through something, and helping people find relationships and find their people is really exciting. And that's probably, I know our favorite part, Carla and I talk about this a lot, is skating is amazing. And it is so much fun. And we get to do so many cool things. But the relationships we get to have with our athletes and getting to know their families and our alumni and seeing them start families and have these amazing careers and be with them on the long and wide and deep journey is really meaningful and really exciting. And it is a skating family. And so it's a pretty fun thing to be a part of. There are a couple other questions on here that we haven't really gotten to, but one I do want to address, and then I'll kind of give a general blurb to cover some of the others. Someone asked, where did Vicki Korn coach before Miami? So varsity synchronized skating wasn't a thing when she came to Miami. She came to Oxford in 1984. I know this because I was 9 years old, getting ready to turn 10, and she became my coach. She had been in Evansville, Indiana, and been a skating director there. And she actually came to Miami for the skating director position here on campus. And one of the roles at that point in time was working with the skating club team. So when we talk about her parlaying the club skating into a varsity program, she really did take the lead on it. And there were a lot of advocates, not just here on campus, but also in U.S. figure skating for helping make that happen. Whether it was Coach Steve Cady or Mitch Korn or Lee Ann Shoker, or there's just a lot of people who really saw, Gail Kanger, a lot of people who saw the potential in cultivating collegiate athletics in the form of skating, and really helped groom us to be ready when the opportunity came up for the program to make the leap. So that was a pretty special thing. So it's neat now because there is a roadmap kind of now to doing this, which there didn't used to be. So we see other varsity programs beginning at other colleges, universities, or club varsity status, or even club teams that have a full-time head coach. There are a lot of amazing questions that kind of go to recruiting for us. So we really wanted to focus on the history of Miami skating, but I do want you to know we love to answer any questions for prospective student athletes and their family members. Right now, the NCAA has extended what we call a dead period, meaning we're not allowed to visit with athletes one-on-one on campus, but we are in communication with prospective student athletes. If you go to MiamiRedHawks.com and you go to the Synchronized Skating page, there is a recruiting form. And any prospective athletes can sign up on the recruiting form, and they'll receive information from us about our recruiting day that we held virtually this last fall, but we hope to hold in person again this coming fall. We don't know, fingers crossed. We also will have a summer skating camp, whether it be for elite level synchronized skaters or more developmental. Again, fingers crossed. Don't know what's happening with that quite yet for COVID. And then we will be having tryout information available to there. I hope you're able to glean many of the things that we look for in athletes. A growth mindset is overall one of the biggest pieces of the puzzle. And I think you've heard from this conversation, that's what a lot of us took away from our experience at Miami Skating. You're more than welcome to email myself or Coach DeGirolamo, and we can even answer questions over the phone. We do compete all over the country when we're all are able to compete. So we could be from LA to Boston. It really just depends year to year. And again, a great way to get to see what our skating truly looks like is to visit YouTube. So it's 1:00, and I have one last question for the group. Where do you see Miami Skating going in the future? Just a big one to finish us out.
Emily, I think you should go first on that one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so for me, I think in the next couple of years, there's a group of passionate and hardworking and athletes who love skating. So I see the next couple of years being a great, after this training season, there was so much time for them to work on our skills. We spent so much time with Kelly honing in on those skating technique pieces to the puzzle. And so I'm really excited to see the program moving forward after they've had all of this time to work on that. I really see great things happening.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Well, since I'm not, I'll let Carla kind of wrap that one up at the end. So I'll jump in the middle of this one since, she kind of is at the helm there. But, I think it's important to recognize and reflect on the past and what, kind of talk about what we've talked about today and know that there's a lot behind the program, and there's a lot of substance, and there's a lot of recognition and success that we've had. But at this point, I would say the future is a blank slate, right? So you have the opportunity to create that, but don't let the things that we've talked about, the second place at Worlds, the consecutive national championships, there's a lot that you could, as the future of the program, hold on to and say, well, this is what we have to do. Well, yes, and those are standards that we've set, but the future is blank, and you can kind of take that and recognize what we've been able to do as a program, and use that kind of as your but know that kind of you can create the future for your program, and know that there's a lot of opportunity for us to do more and do different. And I think that the future holds, I mean, it's hard to say what the future holds for Miami because there's so much left for them to do. Mm-hmm. That was a bad way of explaining that. But.
No, but I get it. I'm in.
I was totally on the same train that I was thinking in my notes here. It was like the future can be whatever we make it. And I think that's a really great and exciting and scary place to be, certainly. But, as Emily said, I think we've got a really great group of student athletes and, a great potential group of student athletes in the pipeline here, coming into their college years in the next couple of years as well. And history is good, and a tradition of excellence is good, and it's important. And continuing that is important. But I think also continuing to pave our way from year to year and team to team, and continuing to break barriers and continuing to really push ourselves to strive for more and not settle for good enough. So I think, the future is ours for whatever we want to make it to be.
I would agree with that. I think those are great reflections from all three of you on what the future could bring. And I just, again, want to thank you so much for your time and your energy and thoughtfulness and answering these questions. And I hope everyone that joined us today really enjoyed this. We we'll sit and talk about Miami skating anytime you want if you haven't gathered that. And I hope that you were able to learn more. If you, again, have any questions about coming to Miami to skate, you can find Carla or I on the MiamiRedHawks.com website again. We are here and available to answer questions. And last but not least, I do want to, again, thank our sponsor for today's webinar, Ohio's 529 plan, providing families a tax-advantaged way to save for higher education, because we all need that at this point, right? So thank you all again, and stay warm in this wintry weather, and love and honor.